A number of Republicans running for Congress are hoping to flip heavily blue districts red in the upcoming general election. One of those candidates is running for Pennsylvania's 18th Congressional District, which consists largely of the Pittsburgh area. His name is Luke Negron, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Stephanie. Good morning.
Good morning. So you describe yourself as a non-establishment candidate, adding that you're not a status quo Republican. What sort of policies do you want to enact that will differentiate you from other members of Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one policy that would really stand out as being a non-establishment policy in a bipartisan manner, by the way, is really term limits. The need for congressional term limits is something that I think we've seen for a long time in the United States, and it's something that unfortunately we haven't had because we see a lot of people who aren't willing to vote themselves out of a job, essentially. So term limits is a big one. That is a pledge that I've given to the people of Pittsburgh and really to the people of the United States as a whole.
And we're seeing more and more officials calling for that, more newly elected officials calling for that. But the Cook Partisan Voting Index shows the district is a solid Democratic ground based on the two previous presidential elections, where the district's results were 13 percentage points more Democrat than the national average. How do you plan to appeal to voters based on knowing this data?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few things that we can do here. Number one, I think that the D+13 district is actually quite solidly in play. Most political scientists agree that a +20 district is out of play. +13 is an uphill battle by any standard, but it's something we can work with. And in the two-party system which we exist in, the numbers can be a little bit deceptive because the blue and red numbers really have quite a bit of variance within them. There's a bit of a spectrum that the Democrats exist within. For instance, you've got a big difference between FDR and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? One is radically left and one is not so radically left, especially today. In Pittsburgh, we've got a lot of the traditional Democrats, blue dog, light blue, working class families who are union-based, and these are people we can talk to all day long. So a lot of what makes up that D+13 index are some very reasonable, respectable, working class citizens who I personally appreciate very much. And they're people who I've met with often. And a lot of them like to tell me, look, you know, my dad was a union guy. I grew up Democrat, but I'm voting Trump in this next election because I love what he's done to protect my jobs. And that's the number one thing that we can do to talk to them is say, look, what can we do to help you and your family to build stability financially and to give you the American dream here? That's what we want to protect.
You recently talked about how Social Security will not be available for your generation, or I'm assuming our generation, and it's not being addressed. What would you like to see done regarding that?
Yeah, I think the number one thing we need to do for our budget as a whole, and specifically for Social Security in my generation, is balance the budget. As we move forward, there is no excuse for a governmental budget not being balanced. If you or I don't balance our budget right, if we don't pay our taxes on time and in the correct fashion, then we either get fined or go to jail. If the government doesn't essentially balance their own budget, then they just print more money. And then they just take more money from our tax dollars. I believe that's wrong. So I think that's the first thing we need to do to take a step in the right direction. Then I'd like to see a lot of cutbacks in government entitlements, and a lot of kind of cutbacks in some of these bloated government programs. And pretty much every government program has some inefficiencies that we can visit as a conservative movement and try and make more efficient.
And lastly, where can our viewers go to learn more about your campaign?
That is negron2020.com. My last name, negron2020.com. We've got all of my social media linked there, and you can go check it out. I think that you'll enjoy what you see. I've got some policy positions linked, and go learn more about me and my team.
And for our viewers, that link is right below on the bottom of your screen. Luke Negron, thank you so much again.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.